The golden age of Yamaha didn't end with a crash. It ended with a whisper in a cold laboratory in Iwata. For over 20 years, Yamaha stood as the final guardian of a fatting philosophy, the only manufacturer in the world of MotoGP to remain fiercely loyal to the Inline-Four engine. It was a configuration that defined an era, the smooth, surgical precision that allowed legends like Valentino Rossi and Jorge Lorenz to carve through corners like a scalpel. But as the 2026 season approached, the silence in the Yamaha garage became deafening. The sweet handling of the YZR M1 had become a polite way of saying it was defenseless on the straights. The turning point was brutal. While Ducati, KTM, and Aprilia were engineering monster V4 powerplants that produced staggering acceleration, Yamaha was hitting a glass ceiling. The internal data was undeniable. They weren't just losing races, they were losing their identity. In a move that sent shockwaves through the paddock, Yamaha leadership made the call to execute the most radical technical pivot in their history. The Inline-Four was dead. The V4 era had begun. But to tame a beast this aggressive, they didn't just need a new engine. They needed a rider who didn't know how to play by the rules. No one inside the paddock expected what would unfold next, and it would change everything for him, his team, and the entire season. Enter Toprak Razgatlıoğlu. To the MotoGP elite, he was the ultimate outsider, a man who had spent his career dominating the World Superbike Championship with a style that defied the laws of physics. Toprak doesn't just ride a motorcycle, he weaponizes it. Known for his stoppy entries and a supernatural ability to balance a bike on its front wheel while decelerating from 300 km/h, he was exactly the chaotic energy Yamaha needed. When he signed with the Prima Pramac Yamaha project for 2026, the skepticism was thick. Critics claimed the transition from production-based tires to the hypersensitive Michelin prototypes would break him. But behind the scenes, Yamaha wasn't looking for a traditional rider, they were looking for a catalyst. Toprak's arrival wasn't a standard transfer, it was a homecoming designed to stress-test a motorcycle that was still in its infancy. In early private tests, the Turkish rider didn't just adapt, he challenged the engineers. He demanded a bike that could handle the brutal forces of his late-breaking attacks. Yet, as the first official tests of the 2026 season loomed, whispers began spreading that Toprak's radical style was causing a rift within the development team. But what the paddock discovered next shocked everyone. The secret to Yamaha's sudden transformation wasn't just found in a rider, but in a man who had spent years in the high-pressure world of Formula One. Luca Marmorini, the former Ferrari engine guru, was the shadow operative behind Yamaha's Blue Shift plan. Tasked with bridging the gap between Japanese traditionalism and European aggression, Marmorini faced a monumental challenge. The Inline-Four was a masterpiece of balance, but the V4 was a chaotic explosion of power. Inside the Iwata factory, a cultural clash was brewing. Traditionalists feared that by chasing brutal acceleration, Yamaha would lose the kendo, the emotional connection and precision that made the M1 legendary. Marmorini, however, was relentless. He pushed for a narrower engine profile and a firing order that would mimic the traction of their rivals while maintaining enough agility to satisfy Toprak's requirements. The result was a hybrid prototype, a bike that looked like an M1 but growled with a sinister V4 throatiness. However, the first time this machine hit the track in a secret session at Jerez, the data revealed a terrifying flaw that threatened to end the project before the first race. Yet this was only the beginning of a far bigger storm. The Spanish Grand Prix at Jerez is widely considered the ultimate truth-teller in MotoGP. If a bike has a weakness, the technical combination of fast sweeps and hard-braking hairpins will expose it. For Yamaha, Jerez was the designated theater for their first major technical update of the 2026 season. They arrived with a suite of new aerodynamic elements and a revised power delivery system that many insiders believed were the first organs of the V4 project being transplanted into the current race bike. The pressure on Toprak was suffocating. Every eye in the paddock was fixed on the 54 garage. During Friday practice, the staggering reality of the V4 transition began to surface. Toprak wasn't just fast, he was riding the bike in a way the M1 had never been ridden before. He was squaring off corners, using the newfound torque to catapult the bike toward the next apex. But as the temperatures rose on the Spanish asphalt, the flaw Marmorini's team had feared began to manifest. The bike was so aggressive that it was literally tearing through its rear tire in less than 5 laps. And from that moment, nothing would ever be the same. While the world watched Toprak, a different kind of tension was simmering in the factory monster energy Yamaha garage. Fabio Quartararo, the man who had carried the brand on his shoulders for years, found himself in a precarious position. For seasons, he had begged for more power. Now he had it, but it came at a price. The bike was becoming foreign. It no longer rewarded the high corner speed style that had made him a world champion. Reports from the paddock suggested a growing miscommunication between the two sides of the Yamaha camp. While Toprak's team at Pramac was embracing the chaos of the V4 development, Quartararo's crew was struggling to find a baseline setup. The Blue Shift plan was inadvertently creating a two-tier system. Every time Toprak posted a competitive lap time using experimental parts, the pressure on the factory duo intensified. It wasn't just a race against the Ducatis anymore. It was an internal battle for the future direction of the most legendary manufacturer in racing. However, the twist that followed would change the championship narrative entirely. The climax of this technical revolution came at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin. A track known for its punishing elevation changes and brutal backstraight, COTA was the final test. It was here that Toprak Razgatlıoğlu achieved the impossible, scoring his first career MotoGP point on a bike that was effectively a laboratory on wheels. To the public, a 15th place finish seemed modest. To the engineers, it was a jaw-dropping success. The data from Austin confirmed that the V4 philosophy was working. The bike's braking stability, Toprak's primary weapon, was now matching the industry leaders. The Turkish Lightning was starting to close the gap lap by lap, session by session. But just as the team began to celebrate, a new rumor surfaced from the paddock. A rival manufacturer had filed an official inquiry into Yamaha's secret tire testing sessions. The accusation was subtle but explosive. Some believed Yamaha had gained a disputed advantage by using non-standard components during private development. What happened after that left even his closest team members stunned. As the 2026 season marches forward, the Blue Shift is no longer just a project, it is a reality. Yamaha has successfully transitioned from a defensive posture to an offensive one. The V4 engine, once a secret weapon whispered about in the corners of the Jerez garage, has become the heartbeat of a new era. Toprak Razgatlıoğlu has proven that he isn't just a superbike specialist, but a legitimate MotoGP force who can mold a 300-horsepower prototype to his will. But the journey is far from over. With the 2027 regulation changes to 850cc engines looming, Yamaha's V4 gamble is a race against time. They have sacrificed decades of tradition for a chance to stand on the top step of the podium once again. The question remains, is this a temporary surge, or is Toprak the chosen one who will lead Yamaha back to global dominance? One thing is certain, the roar of the Inline-Four has faded, replaced by the aggressive, staggering scream of a V4 that refuses to be ignored. The era of smooth and steady is over. The era of the brutal blue has just begun.